to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, on the agenda, I did add on section G, we added a little bit to that section. It should read at the end, and authorize that the $3,600 be paid from the in lieu of parks fee. So that will be added to item G. Adoption of the minutes. The minutes have been distributed. If there are no changes to the minutes, can I get a motion to adopt the minutes as distributed?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Citizens' comments. Any citizens in the crowd wishing to make a comment about anything? Yes, sir.
Common Road, 1405 Greymore Way. I just have one question, and I don't know, maybe I didn't pay attention at the planning board meeting. Is the planning board gonna post their answers to what citizens had questions to? Do you, maybe you don't know, to the questions that were presented about the proposed warehouse at the planning board? I knew they said they would address them.
Yeah, Jack has indicated that once we have answers to all the questions, we will post it on the website.
Oh, okay, very good.
And you asked a question at the last meeting that I didn't have an answer for, I just forgot. And what it was change to
Tax receipt.
move the money from clerk one to the deputy tax receiver's position. What that was is, in order for the person in that position, who was a clerk one, to assist with the receiving of taxes, that person had to be made a deputy tax receiver. So they had to just switch the money over. That's according to the comptroller's office. But I wanted to get back to you with that answer.
Thank you, very good.
Yes, ma'am.
Nita Kovaleski, Radisson. I just wanted to know if there was any progress for Brundage Road. I was there the other week and they were double parked and you could hardly get through.
I've been out there every day this week with the state police, addressing that issue with them. The state police, I've talked to the state police sergeant out of the Lysander barracks. I am going to send him the schedule of the trucks down there, and he assured me that he's going to put as many people as he can, assign them to that area. In fact, he's going to bring some of their, it's called TIMs, they specialize in the DOT regulations and things, so they're probably going to do some things down there, as well as I talked to Emily Hivitz from Anheuser-Busch, and we're still working through that process to try and have Anheuser-Busch assist us with that. One of the other things we're going to have to look at is, and I didn't want to bring it up tonight, is do we want to make that a one-way? Do we want to make it limited parking to address the problem? So I'm waiting to see what Budweiser comes up with, what Anheuser-Busch comes up with before I bring it to the board to make any decisions. But we're out there. I've been out there, like I said, almost every day. I go by regularly, and the state police have been there as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? We got supervisor's comments. There should be well, there is. Lysander grievance day, memo in the back. I asked the town assessor to list the days for people so they understand when the grievance days are, what the process is, and just put it in a little checklist. So for anybody that's in the audience, there's a checklist in the back. And Ms. Falcone, did you put this on the website, this checklist?
Yep.
Yep, okay. So it's on our website as well. And what this does is it reminds you there are specific dates if you're going to grieve your assessment. And if you don't meet those dates, then you lose the opportunity to grieve it. So I wanted to make sure, and so did the town assessor, make sure that everybody had those dates so that you know what the process is. And so if you go to our website, you will find this memo on that. Earlier in our conversations in the work session, we were talking about the marijuana legislation. The marijuana legislation is very comprehensive, and the way they put it together, it's 100 pages plus. It's very difficult to understand even for attorneys. But there are two opportunities for towns, or there are two issues that towns and villages have to deal with, and one is, do you want to allow consumption, retail consumption establishments in the town? And the second one is, do you want to allow retail sales of marijuana in the town? Two separate issues. If we don't do anything, then it automatically goes into effect. We would have consumption, places where you could go and consume marijuana would be like, just like a bar. Only instead of consuming alcohol, you're going to consume marijuana. The second would be retail sales. And I'm not sure if you can do both you can sell and consume in either place simultaneously. I don't think that you can, but I gotta check. But you can, the town would have to opt out of that if we don't want it. Well, what we want is people to come in and tell us what the public wants. If we're gonna vote no on that, we wanna know that people, or yes, we want to know what the community thinks about that. Now, if nobody attends the meeting and the board decides, and I don't know which way the board's going to decide, but say the board decides to opt out, that we are not going to have either one of those, either consumption or retail sales in the town of Lysander. We want to allow anybody that couldn't make the meeting or wasn't aware of it or whatever to the opportunity, because there is an opportunity for people that do want retail sales of marijuana in a town. There is an opportunity to do a permissive referendum. What that would entail, people would have to go out and get signatures from about 305 residents in the town of Lysander. That would force a referendum on the town, and we would have it on the November ballot. Some people might say, well, why don't you just have a referendum and let us vote on it? We can't have a referendum because town law does not allow towns to force residents to vote on a referendum. The villages can do that. So the village of Baldwinsville, if they want to put it up for referendum, they can do that. But towns cannot do that. It has to be initiated by the citizens. If 5,000 citizens come in and say we want to smoke marijuana in our town, and we want retail sales in our town, and the board takes that into consideration and says yes, or actually you don't even have to take a vote on it, then it automatically goes in. But if the majority of people come in and they say that they don't want it, me personally, I'm gonna do whatever the citizens want. People want it, they don't want it, it's up to citizens. Then we wouldn't have to have a referendum if they wanted it. But if they don't want it, then we would have to pass a resolution opting out, and then the citizens would have to go out, get the signatures, and force a referendum. So, at our next meeting, what we are going to do, and we'll publicize this, we are going to have, I want to discuss it. I want people to come to the meeting so we can discuss it. We are going to, normally citizens' comments are 5 minutes. We're going to waive that for that meeting. So as many citizens that come, we're going to hold it kind of like a public hearing with a question and answer. We will answer as many questions as we can. And like I said, we probably won't be able to answer every question of every citizen because it's 150 pages or over 100 pages, and even attorneys can't answer them. But we will do our best. But we do, as a board, want to hear what the citizens of Lysander think about the legislation. One of the things that citizens should take into account is that there is a tax benefit to towns that have retail sales. The tax benefit to towns is 3% of the total sales, and it comes right back to the town. And the sales of marijuana in towns can be very substantial. There could be a very substantial amount of tax revenue. I'm not saying that, you know, I'm in favor of that or not in favor. I'm just giving you the information as I have it. So at the next meeting, we will publicize it, and we will have a discussion, the town board, with as many residents as want to come here and give us their opinion on what we should do. That's all I have. Let me start with you, Mr. Kudarauskas, board comments.
I'll stick to the agenda tonight.
Mr. Diamond.
I'd like to introduce a resolution tonight to rescind the town supervisor's guidelines regarding town board meetings, requiring people who have been vaccinated to have to show proof of being vaccinated or be forced to wear a mask during a town board meeting. So I'd like to have that added to the agenda.
Okay, I don't think that you can do that. That authority is given to me by statute. That's part of the supervisor's responsibilities, which I showed you documentation about. Mr. Rivazinga, what do you think about that?
I agree. I don't know how I can take the authority away from you, because if you screw up, you're going to get sued. Somebody comes in and says, I caught it because you didn't do this, it's you.
Tony, if a board member wants to change a policy, don't tell me that we can't do that, because then the sky's the limit.
Do you want to change the policy to say, for example,
On this specific thing, we ought to, you're going to prevent a town council from volunteering a resolution?
suppose that he wants to take away the supervisor's authority to manage the town funds, can you do that?
We're not talking about that.
I know that, Bob, but you're talking about, I'm only answering one question. I'm answering the question, can he do this for this particular issue? I said no. That's all. I didn't give any opinions about anything else. All I'm saying, you can't just pick and choose, say, let's get rid of this policy without referring to what the law says. The law says you can't do that. You can't say, well, you know what, let's only have 3 people on the board vote instead of 5. Let's make that a policy.
So what
Can't do it.
policy we can't undo? The one that we passed 2 meetings ago, that for the town policy?
No, that one you can do, but this is statutory. I have certain responsibilities and certain responsibilities under town law, and they fall under me. You can't repeal town law. That's what this is.
No, and I'm
essentially
not
doing.
trying to repeal town law, so that's not what I'm looking to do.
I'm saying that policy is staying there. I have the authority, because by statute, I have the authority to, or I have the responsibility and the authority to manage buildings and meetings and the town board meetings.
Well, I found out about this yesterday, so I will do some work in looking into this, and I will revisit this at the next town board meeting.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
Mr. Jurassic?
Well, I don't want to belabor the issue, but it's very concerning when I'm hearing that the town board can't decide to discuss and maybe revamp a particular policy. That what I'm hearing tonight is that the town supervisor can implement the policy because he's in charge, or he or she is in charge of the building. So therefore, if he decides that everybody coming through that front door has to wear a yellow raincoat, I guess we can't decide otherwise. And I just think that's inappropriate for a town of this size where we are able to discuss things. The reason this is an issue, and I can't speak for Rowan, I can only speak for myself, is that I understand the safety risks with COVID. We've been scared out of our minds for this last year. But this smacks of show me your papers, sir, before you go any further. And I just don't like what's happening in this country with show me your papers, because we are segregating ourselves to those that are and those that aren't. And we ought to be careful about that. It's one thing to say to people, you know what, if you've been vaccinated, you don't have to wear your mask. And if you've not been vaccinated, please wear your mask. but, you know, let people decide for themselves what they want to do with that. And so we can't discuss this officially. All I can do is make this as my little thing before the meeting starts. I'm uncomfortable with the policy we've set up. I'm done.
Well, I'll take responsibility. I set it up. I'm not putting this on anybody else, but it's my responsibility to run the meetings and to take care of the buildings, and that's what I'm doing, so. Mr. Moore.
All right. For starters, I would say I like hearing the conversation about protecting people's personal rights and privileges. I think it's a healthy discussion that we're having. As far as who has the right to make one policy over another, that is for our attorney to decide. And I would ask that we maybe get some clarification on that aspect of it. I know the article from the Peru Gazette is here, but if I could see law instead of a news article, that would be wonderful. But I think it's a healthy discussion because everybody here has the good of the public in mind, regardless on what side of the fence you're on for this one. So that's, that's a good discussion. As far as the marijuana legislation, I would implore people to come to our next town board meeting and give the town board their feedback on this. I view myself as a representative, and in this particular situation, I think it's really important that the opinion of the people of the town of Lysander is heard directly from those people and not just interpreted through me or through my own personal opinion. So I would really please do, as Officer Wiggs has asked, and show up and give us your opinion. And then the last thing I would like to say, before I thank everybody for coming, is that earlier we did talk very briefly about the timeline for the splash pad to be open. We did not, due to other things on the table, have a lengthy discussion about that, but perhaps during department head reports we could get a report on the timeline for that. Other than that, thank you everybody for coming, and summer's on the way.
Okay. So, I'm not disagreeing with some of the things that Councilor Diamond and Councilor Gerasi said about individual rights, but when it comes to public safety, I've been doing that most of my life. So sometimes you have to make decisions. And I know that if people coming to these meetings, there are a number of older individuals that come to these meetings. And I know that a lot of the older individuals are uncomfortable when they see people without masks. So I'm trying to at least let those people know that if they do see somebody without a mask in here, that somehow we verified that they were vaccinated. Because although I would like to think that everybody is honorable and honest, we all know that that isn't the case. So some people would just walk in, they could even have COVID and they come in. So I can't check them for that, but certainly I think that the inconvenience of showing your vaccination card, which everybody has to have that if they're going to a ball game, if they go to certain stores in the county, if they go to see a concert, you're going to have to show that anyway. So I know people disagree with me, but sometimes if I'm responsible, I have to make a decision, and whether people like it or not, I have to feel that I'm comfortable with it because I have the responsibility. So, department head reports. We'll start with you, Mr. Merrill.
We are continuing to research and prepare plans for the spray park. I will present it to you, and we'll go over that first. I don't see why we couldn't have a plan on what would be our June meeting, our first June meeting. We're continuing to get quotes, working to get quotes. We have one more that we're waiting on for the resurfacing of the tennis courts and the switching over of the upper tennis court to 2 more pickleball courts.
not pleased at what I'm hearing. And on May 6th, the last meeting we had 2 weeks ago, the consensus, correct me if I'm wrong, was that we would be doing our best to open the spray park by the end of the month, Memorial Day, which is the traditional day you open up public beaches and pools, etc. I am now hearing that it won't be until June 3rd that we discuss a plan to open up our spray park. Why can't we open up the spray park on May 29th, Kevin? Saturday, May 29th, not this Saturday, but the following Saturday.
Well,
There are some guidelines with the bathrooms, correct? So when Mr. Merrill and I were talking.
Follow guidelines on the bathrooms.
Right, and we're looking at buying a disinfecting backpack, so that makes it more, makes it easier for people to use, it's more efficient.
More efficient.
So what I asked Mr. Merrill was to come up with a plan prior to us opening it up, because I think we should have a plan to meet whatever guidelines there is, and you don't have a plan yet. I mean, you've been working on it though, right?
Well, how long does it take to make a plan? Kevin, May 6th was 2 weeks ago. And you were gonna buy this backpack sprayer. We gave the authority to the town to buy the backpack sprayer. How long does it take to put a plan together, to open up a park where you turn the water on? The only thing that we said we needed to do on May 6th was to do, what do you call it, Al? You have to do cycle the.
We have to do a backflow certification.
And has that been done yet?
No, but it's scheduled for next week.
For next week, and I'm gonna presume that's the earliest they could have come out here.
Yes, that's there as soon as I can get somebody here to do it.
That I understand, because people are backed up, I get it. All right, so that's next week, the week of the 24th. I don't wanna wait until the next board meeting to discuss this. Can't you just open the damn thing the first week in June? What is keeping us? I don't understand why we're waiting. That Saturday on May 29th, now of course it's gonna be 34 degrees out, I guarantee you. But it could very well be 85 degrees like it was today. And people are gonna be itching to go into that spray park on Memorial Day weekend. Tell me, am I speaking entirely alone? I mean, what's the goal here? And what's preventing us from opening it much sooner than the third week in June?
Well,
Which is what
one
we said
of
before
the
the
things
meeting.
that I've discussed with Supervisor Wicks is that I'm recommending that we open it at the conclusion of school. I mean, that's our users. You know, if we open before then, we're only primarily being used on the weekends.
Fine, open it up on
So-
weekends and keep it closed during the week if that makes your job any easier. Open it up for 1, 2, 3, 4 weekends before you open it up full time. Fine, I mean, I can live with that. And that actually might work to your advantage, because then you will get comfortable with how the restrooms get cleaned and how it's all working, and are the kids really being rambunctious and all of that. That's even a better approach. So I'm gonna recommend, I don't know, until you tell me differently, Bob and Kevin, today's the 20th, you have a week and a half to open it up on the 29th. Why can't you do it?
We can revisit that.
I wanna know, when I leave this meeting tonight as a town board meeting, that we're gonna do it or not. I mean, what's keeping us from doing it? You're having a staffing problem? Have you put out feelers that you wanna hire people to help you? Have you done that yet?
Well, it's gonna be my recommendation that we don't staff it. I don't see the necessity.
I agree with you. You don't have to staff it. Do what we did 2 years ago, which was we got through the end of the summer by the existing staff and a couple of volunteers, which I know you can get, to just watch the place.
I thought we 86 the people watching them.
What?
I thought during the budget, we took out those people watching it, because before the town had people spray park, people watching the spray park.
I don't want to micromanage Kevin, but if
Yeah.
Kevin is saying that with his existing staff, he can keep an eye on the facility, and that's why a thing to do would be to open it on Saturdays and Sundays for a couple of 3 weeks.
just let it
See
run.
how it goes.
During the budget talks, we did talk about that, and the previous park director we brought that up to them in the budgets, and we like Councilor Kudarowski said, we did say that for what they are doing, it should be staffed by whatever staff is there. I mean, what do they do? What are they watching? They're really not watching
I
anything.
totally agree with you. I
But
don't think you
I-
need existing staff.
I
Extra staff, I'm sorry.
I agree with Mr. Merrill that we should wait until the end of June, but, you know, on this position, I'm willing to, you know, if everybody else wants to open it prior to that, I'm okay with
Give
that.
me a reason, Kevin, why you can't open it on the 29th.
Next week?
That's the Memorial Day weekend, yes, the 29th.
Backflow, what's that date now?
Would just be a
Chris,
matter of,
Chris hasn't given me an exact date, but he said he can get out here to do it next week.
it's
So
just
we have to
gonna
wait
be a
on that.
matter of the inspection on the backflow.
Yeah, presuming that there's nothing wrong, you can always say, sorry, we plan to open on the 29th, but the plumbing didn't work. That happens. It's no different than closing the
Is
beach
the
down for algae.
repair, the plumbing
They're supposed
repair
to
that
show
needed
up-
to be
they're supposed
done,
to show
is
up
that?
Monday or Tuesday as well.
Make it contingent on that passing on Monday or Tuesday, and then the goal is you put a word out to the messenger on our website, we're open on the 29th. And then you've got the 29th, the 30th, and the 31st. I mean, you gotta include that Monday, it's a holiday. Then you've got the 5th and the 6th, the 12th and the 13th, and I presume school is out when, Peter, the 21st?
22nd.
22nd.
Yeah, okay, the 22nd. So you've got 4 weekends that we could experiment with this place.
So the very least we would have to do is staff people to clean the bathrooms. That's the very, yeah,
We've got staff.
okay. What do we want to do?
I want to see the place open, I mean, I bet you. So I would say also, and I know waiting till school is closed makes sense in some ways, but I bet that park is full right now. I'll bet there are families down there playing lacrosse right now, and they have complete families of kids of all ages down there. And I'd be willing to bet if it were open right now, some of those parents would have those kids trotting around in there.
Well, some of the parents might be trying to run.
Maybe about
They'll have
this.
practice
But you know
in
what I
there
mean?
right
That park isn't empty right now. There are people down there who would be glad
So what
to
do we
use
wanna
it.
I say what Drossy says, let's
Let's
run
open
on the weekends for right now until it's, and then after school, let it run full time. At least that way you get familiar with it and, see how that goes. I think that's the best solution, is just on weekends.
So you can make that happen? Okay, so we're gonna make it happen.
Okay.
Great. And so you'll put I don't know who does it, but a word out to the messenger. This is big news. Try to put it on the front page. Great.
And I would put we'll talk Monday, but we'll come up with the dates and the times. And what time it's gonna be open.
Right up there with the marijuana
Yeah.
legislation. Put it right up there with the marijuana legislation.
The parents bring their
Well, this is,
Come on, we need a lot of.
this is probably bigger news than the marijuana legislation.
So I'll leave, so the consensus is the 29th, Saturday the 29th.
If it can be done, if
Yeah,
everything
it can
can
be done.
everything can be done on that end.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Want to talk about the pickleball courts? Did we talk about that earlier?
We're waiting on, pretty much the last quote to come through on how much they can do or how much it's gonna cost them to transition that top court into pickleball courts and then resurface the two tennis courts, the two that are remaining as tennis courts. So,
Are they out there playing right now?
they are playing pickleball right now, yeah. It's been
There's a
very
lot of
busy.
people out there.
Yeah,
You go out there
Yeah.
during the day, there's 50 people at least.
yeah.
That's great,
Yeah.
that's great.
I've had conversations with them about converting that remaining tennis court into two pickleball courts. They're excited about that. And
Yeah, so we'll have actually 6 that they can use.
And they want lights too. I
well,
bet.
4 that are
That's strictly pickleball,
primarily
and 2 other ones
right,
that
are
will be marked for pickleball.
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, the 2 that'll remain as tennis courts will still be marked for pickleball use.
and when we talked about it before, we decided to do all of them new, right? That's what we're doing.
Yeah, so with the dollars that are in that account, that total account, and what some of the items that we weren't going to do or weren't necessary to talking to the board about, and I don't remember if it was something we had to do or I think we were going to do anyway,
Yeah.
was pooling those dollars in order to cover conversion of, a total conversion of the top tennis court into 2 pickleball courts, and then that being completely resurfaced and repainted.
Now, we should do that,
The-
yeah, we should do that at the next meeting,
Yep.
to move that money.
Yep, we
Because,
should be
yeah,
ready to do
What
that.
he's talking about is there's monies, because some of the things we weren't doing. So there's monies in other line items that we
Right.
didn't use,
Right.
that we were gonna move from those line items to move it over because it was,
Well,
Mr.
the-
Merrow suggesting that we do,
Right, well,
fix
the-
it all up at once.
The original dollars that were, whether they were previously voted on or planned on in the budget, the conversion of that tennis court was only going to provide for the setting of 4 posts and nets for pickleball, and then relining it over the current surface and lines that are already there for tennis. It wasn't going to provide a whole, so it wasn't going to
Yeah.
mimic the 2 pickleball courts that are
Which would be
adjacent to
too
it.
confusing for the pickleball
Well,
players.
exactly. Well, I mean, it was
Yeah.
kind of just doing half the job.
Yeah.
So now what we'll have is it'll mimic the adjacent pickleball courts. So now you'll have 4 courts up there that all look alike. And then the tennis courts that'll remain on the lower level, those will all get a brand new surface, brand new lines.
How long do they have to be out of commission for to do that?
The vendors that I've spoken with so far, when they can get scheduled to do it, it shouldn't take them more than 2 weeks total time to do everything.
So we're gonna put them out of commission for 2 weeks, or are you gonna do this in the fall? When are you gonna do this?
Well, they probably won't be able to get to it until end of summer into fall anyway.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Mr. Yeager?
No,
Ms. Belko?
It's my understanding that it's Mr. Hoteling's last evening videotaping. Congratulations on your retirement. And I also want to thank you for recording so well, because doing the minutes, I have to keep going back, a lot. So I just appreciate it, and it really helps when I work on the minutes that I get to see the video. So thank you for everything. And it was nice working with you. Really appreciate it.
You too. Thank you.
All right.
You should turn the camera around so people can see you.
Do a selfie.
Moving on to regular agenda items. May I have a motion to adopt the organizational chart for the town of Lysander?
I'll move that.
Second it?
Any discussion? So for those in the audience, there should be copies of our organizational chart. And the organizational chart, the town never had one, so we developed one. And what that does is it shows, because a lot of times people will call up and they'll talk to me, and there's an assumption that I supervise all these people. And if you look across the top, the town clerk, the highway superintendent, there's 3 boards, town councilors, town justice, 2 of them. We are all on the same line. So what that means is that we are all equal. Nobody supervises anybody along that line. So then when you look, when you go vertically down, you can see where everybody else falls into line. So with the town justices, you have a court clerk and security. They fall right under the town justices and so on. So you can look through, and that will be on an updated one, because that one, you weren't even here.
I printed out,
Yeah,
it's printed out.
we've
So
been
that'll be on the
working on.
website. I'll put that up on the website if you want.
Yeah, that'll be on the website for anybody to look at. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. May I have a motion to approve summer hours beginning Tuesday, June 1st, and ending Tuesday, September 7th, Memorial Day to Labor Day?
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
What would those hours be? Should we list them?
You know what? They should have been summer hours. Yeah, they should have.
8:30 to 4. And Friday,
Yeah, they should.
And
You know
Friday's
what?
off.
I will add this to the motion. So the motion should read to approve summer hours, 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m., beginning June 1st and ending Tuesday, September 7th, which is Memorial Day.
You didn't get the
What?
last one.
What?
Friday's off.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Hey, I do the minutes, I can put
Yeah,
that.
I know. So, we did this last year, and I think that the public actually liked it better because we were open earlier than 9 o'clock, and after 4 o'clock in the summer, or actually after 3:30 in the summer, this place gets pretty sparse. We really don't get that many people coming in, especially on a nice day. So we began that last year. It worked out pretty well, so we're going to continue that moving forward. Well, we'll see if we are. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. So we will be continuing that moving forward. May I have a motion to accept the resignation of David Rowley from the position of Town Comptroller effective May 27, 2021?
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
I would just like to thank David for all that he's taught me. He's one of the, when I have questions about numbers, David's the guy I go to. So thank you for your service all this time, David.
Steve was a wealth of information with a ton of institutional knowledge. He's been here for so long that he could really provide the history to why a lot of the decisions were made the way they were. So he'll definitely be missed.
Yeah, I concur. I mean, it's just been a pleasure to have someone, one of the most important jobs the town board does is the budget. And without David Rowley's help, we could not do a good job reviewing the budget and then passing it. So kudos to Dave.
Anyone else?
No, I echo every board member's comments. He's going to be missed deeply.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. May I have a motion to appoint Teresa Pierce as Town Comptroller effective May 28, 2020, at her current rate of pay, part-time, 3 days per week?
I'll move that.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. May I have a motion to appoint David Rowley as bookkeeper to the supervisor, part-time as needed, effective May 28th, at a rate of pay of $38.50 per hour?
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
I heard good things about this guy.
Yeah. Okay, so what we're doing is, Mr. Rowley has been gracious enough to be training our soon-to-be comptroller because there is voluminous amounts of information that he has in his head that he's trying to impart to our new comptroller. So we're trying to take some of the workload off of her that Mr. Rowley currently had. It's going to be shared between me and Mrs. Mott. And by him being a bookkeeper, we'll be able to bring him in. He will be helping us with the next year's budget, and I think it's important for our new comptroller to see how the budget process works, and I think that it would be a good learning experience for her to work with him during that and to make sure that we finish it on time, because there are timelines with it. And then also he will act as a consultant for Ms. Pierce at any time over the next year, or as long as he's here actually, if she has any questions, or any other board member or I have any questions. So, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. May I have a motion to waive the permit fee of $300 for a fireworks display, pyro permit fee on behalf of the Village of Phoenix for their June 25th, 2021 fireworks with an expected duration of 10 minutes at dusk for property located at 9354 River Road, Phoenix, New York, same as last year.
I'll move,
Go ahead.
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And I'm in favor of it as well, so four yeas, one nay. May I have a motion to authorize the town supervisor to sign the appraisal quote for CNY Pomeroy appraisers in the amount of $3,600 for parkland swap, and authorize that the $3,600 be paid from the in lieu of parks fees.
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All right, so there was an addition, if it was on, if you looked online, I added in and authorized that the $3,600 be paid for the in lieu of parks fees. That was something that we failed to put in, and that should be identified where the money's coming from. Now this property, why don't you go ahead and you have
Yeah, it's a
up-to-date
9.1 acre swap with Mr. Whitney, who owns property along 48. It squares up the back property line of the park all the way across to essentially the back of the park. We get slightly more road frontage along Hinkle Boulevard out of it than Mr. Whitney gets along Route 48. We really just get more usable land for parkland purposes than what we currently have, just because of the topography of the parcel that we currently own.
And one of the uses that we had discussed, and we were looking for grant money, and there is grant money out there, is to extend that half-mile trail in through this property and make it a mile trail. We probably would
It's
be
a mile now, we would want to make it a mile and a half.
It's a mile?
Yeah, it's
Oh, I thought it was a half.
yeah,
Okay,
it's
so it'd be a mile and a half. So we would extend that trail along, and it's all wooded there, right?
Yep.
Okay. So, all right, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Any new business from the board members? Nothing? All right. We are going to have an executive session tonight to bring the board members up to date on the current contract and some issues that came up with, recently that came up with the negotiations between the town and our administrative personnel. So, may I get a motion to move into executive session?
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're going into executive session at 7:43. So I'm listening to what you're saying, just like there's other board members that may agree with you. I don't feel comfortable with it, so I have to make a decision that I'm comfortable with because I have the responsibility to run the meetings. So because I have that responsibility, not you, that's the way it's gonna be.
Well, I disagree with you, Bob. I don't think just because you're the town supervisor, you have the unilateral responsibility and decision-making ability when it comes to a policy like this. What are you handing me?
That's my responsibilities. That's the, look at the yellow, that's responsibilities of the town supervisor.
What do you want me to read, highlight? It
Yes,
says the
yes.
administrator of all programs be in charge of all town offices and buildings.
Right.
That doesn't say anything about setting policy, Bob.
Well, you gave me the authority in the last meeting to set the policies, so,
How did we do that?
by resolution.
What did we do?
Okay, Bob. We had a resolution in the last meeting that allowed me to institute policies that I say we needed because we're going through and we're reviewing all the policies and
You
procedures.
said you were gonna keep the town board up to date and up to speed on that.
And you are.
And if
You
anything,
know about it.
and you said that if anything was controversial, it would be brought.
I
to
don't
the
remember
board.
saying that.
That question, yeah, that question.
I don't
came
remember
up.
saying
You
that.
can't unilaterally decide policy for this town, Bob. I mean, when we gave you that latitude, it was so because you're here day to day, go through the employee manual, fix what needs to be fixed, whether you this or that, and then if there's anything controversial or.
Then we
then
can
talk about it.
we
And I
can
think
change
this
it. No,
one
I
is
understand that, we can, but not with this.
So I wanna, you know, and again, I don't pretend to be an expert at this. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist. I'm kind of thinking of how Ron DeSantis handles this in Florida, where he basically said, you are not going to be permitted in this state to having people show proof of vaccination. That was his mandate. And I think as a conservative.
I thought we lived in New York State.
As a conservative, I thought that was a very appropriate thing for a leader to say. And then quite honestly, I don't quite understand, if you're vaccinated, what do you care if someone sitting next to you is not vaccinated?
Because you can still get it. Just
Transmit
because
it to
you're
your loved ones.
Yeah, just because you're
Yes.
vaccinated doesn't mean that you can't get it
That's
still.
exactly right, Jeff. Everybody is able to get COVID, whether you're vaccinated or not. The only thing that vaccination does, correct me if I'm wrong, is mitigate the effects if you do contract COVID. But you're still susceptible to getting it, no differently than someone who's not vaccinated.
No, that's not true.
Oh, it is? Oh, go to
No, that
go-
is not true.
Go to
That-
CDC.
No.
Okay,
No,
all right.
that's not
Well, see, we're arguing like doctors, and we can't do that.
Well-
To Roman's point, I think it's an abridgment of personal rights. If I would like to go on record as opposing this, and I'd like to put it on the agenda for a vote.
Yeah.
If it goes down, it goes down. But I don't think it's appropriate. I think it does fly in the face of HIPAA. We're not.
It doesn't.
No,
HIPAA has
no,
nothing
no,
to do
that-
with
that's
it.
definitely, no,
We're not the
no, no,
private
no.
sector.
We are. We don't deal with medical.
Right.
HIPAA
Tell me-
only is responsible. When I say in the article, it
Tell
says
me,
it's not
HIPAA
confidential.
doesn't,
We're not HIPAA.
because of
HIPAA,
government.
We're not government.
HIPAA is addressed to
Medical professionals.
medical professionals,
That hold the
hospitals, so
license.
forth. They cannot release physical information, or your health information
Names,
to a third party.
everything.
We're no different than a Wegmans then. We're no different
No
than the
different
private
from
sector.
Wegmans.
Correct,
Okay, I didn't know that.
correct.
Well,
We do not fall under HIPAA.
And I have no problem with people that decide they want to wear masks here, that's fine. But I just don't think that we should be requiring proof that somebody who says they've been vaccinated isn't, by asking to show them a proof of ID cards.
What if a guy comes in and says, I've got COVID, but I want to attend the meeting?
Well, then we ask him to leave.
Why?
What authority do you have to do that?
It presents a public health, safe public health issue.
That's what he's talking about.
No, specifically saying,
You just made my
no, I
argument.
don't see it.
Well, I know you don't see it.
You pulled a lawyer
Everybody
card,
else
didn't you?
I still think-
Yeah.
wait a minute, but you guys are joking at Roman's expense. It's not appropriate.
I'm not
it's
joking.
Fair.
I am
If a
not
guy-
joking.
If to Tony's preposterous idea, someone walks through that door, says he has COVID, what difference does it make whether he's vaccinated or not? He's gotten COVID. There's no difference. You've been vaccinated, people have been vaccinated,
You ever go into the store and they ask or a doctor's office, have you traveled outside the country or outside the state? What is their business?
You
Right?
know what?
We did it on a four-dog unit for-
Yeah, we
Yes,
had
I can't, we're not them. We're the town of Lysander. I don't want to belabor this, but we're not going to convince everybody on this board, but let's bring it to a vote.
The other thing we talked about, when you talked about DeSantis, if Governor Cuomo said tomorrow, you can't do this, different story. We're governed by the laws. The laws start from up here, from the feds, all the way down to the little town. But that hasn't happened here. It happened in Florida.
So we're doing this because of Cuomo.
We're doing this because the CDC and everybody else says we should do that.
But CDC is federal, Tony. So DeSantis has to follow federal guidelines. So what's the difference?
Obviously, he's not.
Well, but you're just using Cuomo and DeSantis as an argument, and now you
Because you use DeSantis. There's
because
other
then you
governors that
switch
do
to
different things.
CDC, Tony. Stick to your governing body.
The CDC is not a governing body.
I know it isn't.
So they're not the ones, all they do
You
is
just
provide.
said if Cuomo wanted to say you don't need to show proof of vaccination, that could be what it would.
That's true, because CDC are only
They're the
guidelines.
guidelines.
Right, then why
They're
did you even
guidelines.
bring up CDC?
Because you were, Bob, you just said DeSantis did this, he wiped it out for the
Yes,
state.
he did.
All I said was Cuomo did not wipe it out
So
for the state.
we're beholden to Cuomo, is what you're saying.
We
Absolutely
live in
right.
New York, right?
Absolutely
All right,
right.
well,
You
that's
have
your
been for the
argument.
last
You're
year.
saying-
Everything that we've done as far as what we can do, mask and no mask, has been
So
from the
we're
governor.
following Cuomo's guideline here.
Who do you think we're
I'm
following?
asking you.
It's a governor.
Okay.
Absolutely.
This is the New York State policy in front of us. This policy is New York State.
No,
No,
that's
it's-
my policy.
It's his
Well,
policy.
are you following Governor Cuomo then?
He hasn't said one way or the other.
Right, he hasn't made a
Governor
decision,
Cuomo,
he's
as
left
I
it
read
up to.
it, gave the authority
Right.
to the entity, whether it be a public or private entity, to make that
To make that
determination.
decision.
Okay, so then your argument about Cuomo being the top dog here in setting policy is not exactly accurate, Tony. We don't have to follow what Cuomo is doing.
Okay, here we go.
Because we actually are following it by making a decision.
All right.
So hold on, before, I just want to forward
Yeah.
it. So if you go back to April 15th, that's when we passed the motion, by the way, and it read to authorize the town supervisor to review the policy and procedures of the town of Lysander and to implement any policies needed. That's when we did it, April 15th. Now, my own personal opinion, and you and I have
Yeah.
talked. I'm a small government guy. I don't like limiting freedoms of constituents in any way. So personally, I'm not all for this. I'm not all heated about it, but I'm not all for it. I at least appreciate the fact that there is a decision being made by John Q. Public, either show me your card or wear a mask. I get that. Still, I'm not a big fan of it. If Bob Wicks, as town supervisor, is responsible for the meeting, the building, then it doesn't, my opinion really doesn't matter. It's his. If Bob's the one who's in charge of this situation, and it has to be what Bob is comfortable with, whether I agree or disagree with that decision. But that's the
Peter-
if, that's where the attorneys come in and
So,
decide.
Peter, with all due respect, a year ago, there was a vote on the spray park.
Oh, yeah.
And if you remember, at that time period, the town supervisor made the same argument, that he didn't feel that the spray park was safe to open. And actually, we had different perspectives on that issue.
I'm not in charge of the spray park, I am in charge of the buildings. That's the difference.
You-
I have the responsibility of the buildings and the people in the buildings and the people coming to the buildings. I don't have the total authority of the spray park. That's the difference.
Appreciate that. I remember the conversation, and you were concerned at the time regarding all of the work that would go into opening the spray park.
Not only that, I was concerned because nobody had enough information that that was a big petri dish, and it was clear that you spread it through face-to-face contact, and when you got a bunch of little kids running around in a spray park area, they're going to get water in their mouth, they're going to get close to each other, they're going to spray, they're going to spit on people. That's what I was concerned about. I could care about how hard it was to open it. I was worried about the kids that were going to be in there.
Yeah, and the cost of making sure the bathrooms were clean and
Well,
and
that
keeping
was
it
just-
sanitary.
Listen, if we could have done it safely, and I would have felt comfortable that we could have done it safely, that the cost wouldn't have prevented me. I mean,
Right.
you know, within reason.
Right.
Within reason. We're talking about it now.
Right.
Kevin's coming up with a plan to open it up. I want to open it up because now I feel much more comfortable. It's a year and a half later, and they have a lot more information. Kids can contract it where they said they couldn't before. Now they can, but the chances of them being really sick are pretty limited. So because I'm pretty confident that kids aren't going to die going to our spray park, then it's up to their parents.
So Bob, I'm not going to be able to convince you or anybody else on the board, but I'll tell you what, one of the reasons why I got vaccinated, one of the reasons why most of my friends and people I know got vaccinated is because they want to be able to live their lives without wearing a mask. And I think that it defeats the purpose of getting vaccinated if you still have to wear a mask or prove to everybody that you come in contact with that, hey, I have papers. And
Well, if you go to watch a ball game, you're gonna have to do that. If you go to watch a
And
concert,
you know-
you're gonna have to do that. If you go into the Dome this year, most likely you're gonna have to do that.
and I can choose where I want to spend my money. And I can choose to go to Wegmans and not another grocery store.
You could choose not to come here, or choose not to show us the card
Right.
and wear a mask.
Right. I just don't, as I said, I don't agree with that, so.
I understand you don't agree with it, but correct me if I'm wrong, it's my decision to make. So I made a decision, we're gonna do it that way. All right, let's, why don't we look at starting the meeting?